Hey, it's your girl Naughty, aka Queen Goddess Hope, coming to you with a reading. I usually don't like to show my face, but here's an attempt of me showing my face. I am outside, so it might get loud and noisy at times. Just an FYI. I did shuffle a bunch of cards. Haven't done readings in a while. I'm attempting to teach myself tarot again. But right now I'm pulling out past, present, and future deck only to try to give you a quick message, and anything that may come out from there comes out from there. You know what I mean? So lately I have been in this kind of funk where people who believe that they're nice aren't really, and or kind-hearted, I should say. And I've been attempting to understand people because I like to treat people how I want to be treated, but I have to come in knowing that everyone isn't as nice as I am or as kind as I am, because I won't say nice. Nice people get bullied, but just knowing that I'm attempting to be this way doesn't always give me the best people. So I have to continue to cloak myself until I feel protected. So some of the cards that came out during this shuffle, it says, give yourself some credit for doing a good job at this whole living thing. Never forget how resilient you are. You always bounce back. Challenge yourself to do better. Don't set limits on your potential. Divine forces are showing up or showing the way for you to go. You are discovering another piece of your destiny and purpose in your life. So I want to show you this card here. Beautiful. Push the Martian is here. Never forget. I don't know how that's going to go. All right. Challenge yourself. So thinking about these cards, right? It really is guiding me to pull a inner child deck, because it's like, life be lifing, as we say, right? Life is life and life be life. And just thinking about everything that we have been witnessing. We have been witnessing the fall of a patriarchy and recognizing that sometimes this is something that we have to deal with while being in America. If you don't live in America, God bless you. Being in America sometimes forces us to do things, live a certain way, act a certain way. You have to really make sure that you're protected when you go out into this world, into this realm, because you don't even realize the pressures that are meant to come up against you. And two cards fell out. It says, it's never truly the end, beloved. In this, everything will be okay. Write a letter to your inner child. So, as I was saying that, what things have you been struggling with present day that you feel you need to release? And lately, I've been having a lot of feelings, mostly of anger, coming up against my parentals, because I feel like you don't stop being a parent when your child turns 18, but realizing that, you know, I feel like there has always been some type of resentment in those relationships that I may have to inadvertently just pause for a moment, right? And think about the positive moments that I may have experienced during that time, but at the same time, move on from my past, because my past does not make me, who I am. As feel what you feel. You have the right to feel what you feel, but remember that that you always have a right to be happy. It says somebody needs to go on a social media detox. No posting, no liking, just living. Don't let it take over your life. So I recently had did a 3-month social media detox. And I just want to sit and talk about that for a minute before I get to the next card, child, because when I was on this detox from social media, I had realized that I hadn't taken a break in 4 years, and I used to take a break often. And when I would take a break, it would be for like a year's time. And when I first came back, it was just like aha moment. There's so much static, and sometimes you feel like your friends are only online, right? And this is where the telephone conversations, this is where back in the day we used to write letters to each other, or pop up at people's houses. There was a time when you could pop at people's houses and always knew somebody would be home. We used to always have visitors in our house. My grandmother always had food on the stove or was willing to cook something just for somebody to just chill and talk and chat for hours and hours. As a butterfly flies by, just thinking about that vintage knowledge that our ancestors brought into our lives. If you were blessed and honored to still be around when your grandparents were surviving, when that generation of OGs transitioned off of this planet, they they left behind nuggets and certain people like myself who recognized that these were gems and we need to now impart that onto the next generation. Their children didn't do that in the most kindest way. So, this next card says, allow yourself to be. You don't have to prove a damn thing. Confidence will follow into you when you are divinely you. So, this is in line with what I was saying. You have to continue to be you. You have to continue to show up with your ancestors' knowledge, with their blessings, with their behaviors, with their mannerisms and characteristics, however you may show up in this life as that OG, as that ancestor, whomever it may have been, you have to continue to thrive in that. No one said this whole life thing was a race. It's okay to slow down. So right now, I'm recognizing that I may in fact be an overachiever and loving that for myself because I feel like I've achieved so much in just, 39 plus years on this planet, but also recognizing that I love who I am. I love who I've become. I've loved all of the things that I've accomplished. And now the thing that I was probably made for, which is to create life, is something that I want to do now, right? So when I recognize that I had been running this race against myself, trying to actively beat myself at this show called life, just thinking about what that may look like for me. I'm like, hey, I have to do what I have to do to keep flowing and going, right? So right now we just pulled the Seven of Cups and the Nine of Swords. So this is just saying like somebody has been deeply in an anxious space. Like what is prohibiting you from calming down? And it's literally just what I said. You want it all. You want too much desire. You have a lot of desire and requirements surrounding you at this time, right? You want the best that life can give you. Maybe you're just feeling like you want it all, but you don't know which side to handle. Like in here, to me, it's like they got Medusa in the back. To me, that represents family. You got a snake, which means that you surrounded by a Judas energy. You have a crown, you have jewelry, you have real estate, and you also have pets. And then at the middle, thank God, is God, right? Right here. So if you see here in this image, you see all of those things that I was saying, right? You got real estate, jewels, a crown, more pets, God, a wife or a husband, and a Judas. You always have a friend somewhere around, right? Who usually wants your spot, usually pretends like they want your energy, usually acts as if they're really close to you, but they can be a deceptive individual. But going back to this nine, right? Thinking about what may be keeping you up at night, what you're not able to rest. One thing that I do is know how to sleep, baby. If you a Libra, shout out to the Libra gang. You know that we be enjoying some sleep, child. But at the end of the day, we're gonna continue to thrive and do whatever we have to do to celebrate our wins, you know. Like I said, before, when you coming off with that same type of energy, eventually you will win. You know, you have to let go of that anxious feeling to really allow the love and the change to come in. That's what this Wheel of Fortune card is. So I had said to a couple of people, um, a, probably sometime during last year, that a Wheel of Fortune was coming, and how things that have people who have been at the bottom will now be at the top, and the people at the top will now be at the bottom. And that's what this next card is really all about, right? Your goals paying off, you finally celebrating the positivity, putting through all of that blood, sweat, and tears, really trying to decide what it is that you really do want, but not realizing that at the end, you will get what you desire because the wheel does turn in your favor. You know, you have to stick to the course, continue to break free from those childhood traumas, you know, allow your inner self to kind of thrive and let go and release. You know, I haven't written a letter to myself in a long time. And sometimes I'm afraid of journaling, and I don't know why that is. But lately I've just been really asking myself for a lot of protection, source God energy for protection, because sometimes the people who are around you don't have your best interests at heart, right? They do want to see you down, but you have to continue to allow yourself to allow those good positive vibrations, allow your soul family to come in, allow yourself to feel that balance. You know, think about the process of where you were with this Wheel of Fortune process and how the lovers plays into that, right? Thinking about how you're birthing a new concept or a new idea and you're waiting for that balance to come in, right? You have to find the balance. So if you're thinking about this energy here, once again, you have to figure out what you need in order to get to that Wheel of Fortune moment. What are you doing that's going to allow you to have that soul connection, that divine love, that divine unity? You know, thinking about how this plays into like Mercury retrograde, but just thinking about two cups becoming one, thinking about the love that is going to be poured into you during this time, you know, thinking about those celebratory moments, thinking about where did you come from? You came from a dark space, you know, with a Nine of Swords. You came from a place that you weren't really too excited. You weren't really happy with the way things are going. But the fact that you got the Lovers card coming out, bro, you are like looking for ascension, and your soul is crying out to you saying that you really need it. You're seeking it, you're ready for it. And what does that really look like? You know, I'm gonna pull some cosmic oracle cards, and then we're just gonna close this out. You know, thinking that you have to continue to protect yourself. Maybe you're similar to me where you feel like you are best protected by yourself. You know, oftentimes people don't really understand why you may be a lone wolf, and that you may be alone, but you're not lonely. And one thing that the pandemic taught me was that a lot of people are lonely and they don't know how to handle being still. I keep saying like, hey, there's going to be another pandemic coming about and around. And they be like, no, don't say that. And I'm like, what are you scared of? Why are you afraid of yourself, of your own shadow? Like, what is prohibiting you from feeling like, hey, this actually may be something beneficial for my soul? Or maybe you just didn't receive the lesson, you know, in that stillness. Because don't get me wrong, I was out here traveling, okay, during the pandemic, traveling outside almost every day, different cities, and there were a lot of places that didn't oblige with those protocols. You know, they knew that that mask was going to kill. They knew that that jab was going to harm some folks. So it's like, what are you trying to tell people when you decide that you don't want to be indoors any longer? What are you running from? Are you running from yourself? And this card says check in with your body and release any tension that you are carrying. And you see that person in the middle of the storm right there? You're in the middle of an entire universe and you don't even check in with yourself to see how you are doing. Remember that it's okay to be happy because it really is. Give your inner critique a vacation day. Be kind to yourself. So, as you can see here in this message, right? The tarot cards were just in line with these same exact cosmic oracle cards. It seems like you're being too critical of yourself. You're not allowing the Most High to intercede on your behalf because change is coming. You're just sitting here like, ooh, what do I get? What do I get? This is all material when you should be focused on the most shiniest thing of all, which is Source God at the center. Sure, He gives us free will to make our own decisions, to find the balance in all things, to overcome all of these things. But when you check in with yourself, you're checking in with the divine because, yes, you are fine and going in and thriving with the Most High. Thinking about this card here, the Lover's card, to me, it's like, my bad. When we're thinking about this, right? We're thinking about connection. We're thinking about union. A lot of us may physically be really thinking about love and what that may entail for us. But the reality of it is that how are you manifesting during that creation process, right? You're in the middle of a storm. You don't even know what you're doing or how to manifest it because you're so consumed by your circumstances, right? I knew that I needed to remove myself from a toxic energy because I wanted to find light, love, and heal my nervous system. A lot of us have unhealed central nervous systems. We automatically are okay with hearing things like this, like sirens and noise, just the noise of the city. I tend to sleep with my windows open because I still want to hear the noise of the city. Sometimes I want to feel that fresh air coming in on me throughout the nighttime, not realizing that it's just a crutch because I cannot get rid of the noise and maybe the quiet is just too much for me, right? And when I think about this, I think about, are you surrendering to the will of the universe? You know, are you genuinely switching cups? All these sirens is driving me crazy, baby. Hold on a second, because child. All right. So are you allowing that transformation to happen? Look at the clothing between this card, right? The Two of Cups. Look at the clothing right here. This seems like you're in a warrior mentality. You're fighting, you're eager. There's something that you're toiling with that you're not willing to release, but you realize that a change has to happen. In order for change to happen, if you're receiving that Two of Cups, that transition, so that you can be in that angelic Roman powerful figure that you're supposed to be. And now here you see the same exact attire because they succumb to the will of the universe. They now can be joyous and celebrate. Think about the arches and significant of an arch when you're married. When you get married, what type of harvest are you celebrating? Sometimes you have to give in to what the universe is trying to give you before you can reap the benefits and the rewards. If so, like for me, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. I had always been like an average saver, but the way that I save is by investing, right? The money's just going to sit in my checking account. I'm going to see these commas, and what is it going to do for me? It's just sitting there. I'm going to get $1 in interest as opposed to the money that I can put in the stock market and get hundreds of dollars for the same exact thing just in a 2-year period. Whereas if I kept it in my checking account, I probably would have earned $12 in 2 years and not the actual two, three, four, $500, depending on the type of investment that I invested in the stock market, right? So that's like me saying, do you want to keep it in your checking account or do you want to invest it in a high yield, interest bearing, dividend giving savings account? What would you rather do? I want to celebrate the wins. Just thinking about that. And, sometimes we have to think about the practicality. Sure, money, they say, is always like the root of all evil, right? Some people feel like they have to make money every single day, no matter what, in order to live a thriving, fruitful life. And to me, money is irreplaceable when I have a roof over my head. I have someone who loves me and takes care of me, i.e., the Most High. When I have things like that, I can eat, I could sleep, I could shower, I can use the internet if I need to. These are all positive things for me, and I recognize the blessings that come with that. So no card popped out, so I'm just gonna take the card at the top, which is Amun Ra, which is the god of creation. Ooh, right? Thinking about this card here, knowing that I can read hieroglyphics, child. The thing that sticks out to me the most is something that looks like fallopian tubes and just creation and life in general, trees growing or flowers blooming. He has life in his hands and the importance and the significance of these things happening. Oh, child, this is driving me crazy. So look, you got the Ankh right here, life. And then you also have these things that look like fallopian tubes to me. And then you also have a tree of life growing at the top. So my bad if you can't see it. This shit is petty. Same thing right here, growing. But I just want to read to you that card because technically it is the second card of the Egyptian Gods Oracle deck. And I won't give the full detail of it, but it just basically says he is the most powerful cosmic deity and he is the king of all kings in Egyptian pantheon. He was born from the fusion of the god Ra with the main deity Amun. Amun Ra is the creator of all things, symbol of intelligent creativity. He is like the fire, rapid and often unexpected. If this card appears to you, you have the skills to obtain what you want, intellectual and practical skills for achieving your objectives. He indicates a flourishing period, skills in public relations, ideas, intentions, which take concrete form. Perhaps even a sudden falling in love, a new beginning, or a love story takes its shape. Didn't the lovers come out? I'm just saying that is creation. So creation is all over this reading today. I'm not really sure who this was for or what or who it was indeed for, but all of these cards are in line with one another tonight. So I hope that you enjoyed this reading. If you wish to have your own reading, please visit iamqgh.wordpress.com. Peace.